Good morning, grade 8. So today we will be discussing rational algebraic expressions. So when we say rational, first thing that comes in our mind is we are um, talking about fractions. So even a whole number, for example, 5, can be also considered a rational number with its denominator is 1. So the numerator is 5 and the denominator is 1. So still a whole number is a rational number. Okay, so we have here the definition of rational algebraic expression. Rational algebraic expression when the numerator and the denominator of a fraction are both polynomials and the denominator is not equal to 0. So in general, rational algebraic expressions can be written as a over b. So this is a fraction form where a here is our numerator and b is the denominator. And our numerator and denominator must be polynomials where b or our denominator must not be equal to 0. So what will happen if our denominator is 0? So I want you to get a calculator and then try to solve 6 divided by 0 and what will be the result. Okay, so you try another one. 100 divided by 0. Okay, you couldn't still get the answer. Now let's try this 1000 divided by 0. Okay, so in 2 all over y, where y must not be equal to 0, and in x plus 1 all over x minus 2, where x here must not be equal to 0, and in x squared minus 3x plus 2 all over x squared plus 1, where 1 and negative 1 must not be an element of x, as these values, so take note of this apart. So as these values make the rational expressions undefined. So if our denominator will be equal to 0, our rational expressions will become undefined. So how can we get the restrictions? So to solve for the restrictions, we copy the denominator, then equate this to 0. So we have here the denominator 10x cubed, so you just copy it, then you equate equal to 0, and then solve for x. So we have here 10x cubed equals 0. So to remove 10, we divide both sides of the equation by 10. So we have now 10 divided by 10, that is 1. And 0 divided by 10, that is still 0. So, ang nabilihan is, we have here x cubed equals 0. You extract the cube root, both sides of the equation to solve for x para madula ni sa exponent nga 3. So, we use cube root. Okay, so cube root of x cubed, that is x, and cube root of 0 is still 0. So, our restriction here is x must not be, so x here must not be equal to 0. So kung mag-equal siya sa 0, our denominator will become undefined. So we cannot solve this because it is undefined. Next, we have here 2x plus 6 all over x squared plus 5x plus 6. So you just copy the denominator, then you equate this equal to 0. And then solve for x, and or you solve for the restriction. So we can apply here the perfect square trinomial, use the factoring technique. So we have the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of x plus 3, and we can equate the first group and the second group equal to 0. So we have x plus 2 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. Then you solve for x. So we have here x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 3. Again, take note that our x in our denominator must not be equal to negative 2 and negative 3 because it will make our denominator equal to 0 and it will make the rational expression undefined. Next, we have 2x squared plus 9x minus 5 divided by 3x squared plus 13x minus 10. So we have here, copy the denominator, then equate it to 0. Okay, so that is 3x squared plus 13x minus 10 equals 0. And you apply factoring. So we have here 3x minus 2 times the quantity of x plus 5 equals 0. You equate the first group into equal to 0. 3x minus 2 equals 0 and x plus 5 equals 0. Next is to solve for x. So add both sides by 2 para ma-remove ni si negative 2. So we have now 3x equals 2. And to remove 3 here, we need to divide both sides by 3. So 3 divided by 3, that is 1. 1 times x, that is x, equals 2 divided by 3, that is 2/3. So since it is already in lowest term, we don't need to simplify this. Kaya aran siya sa lowest term. So if you want to answer this in a decimal, it's okay, but okay na ni siya yung fractions as long as aran siya sa lowest term. Next is to solve for x plus 5 equals 0. So x here is negative 5. Okay, so note, to get the restriction, equate the denominator to 0, then get the value of x. You just equate the denominator equals 0, then solve for x. Okay, if you have questions, kindly message me to our group chat, and thank you for listening.